This conference will now be recorded.
Well, good evening, Council. Glad to see everyone tonight. Let me just get myself a pen here. If I can get a mover and a seconder to open our meeting, please. Peter and John. Moved by Peter Kistemaker, second by John Paroff. Be it resolved that we do call this special meeting of Council to order on Wednesday, March 24th, 2021 at 6 p.m. Those in favor? And that's none opposed. Carried. Item number 3, approval of our agenda. If I can get a mover and a seconder, please. Drago and Belinda. And that's moved by Drago Stefanik, second by Belinda Kistemaker. Be it resolved that Council does hereby approve the agenda as presented. Those in favor? And that is carried, none opposed. Okay, item number 4 is disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof and declaration of conflict of interest. Council, you can do that now or any time throughout the meeting that such situation arises. And we're going to welcome OCWA here today. Johanna and Patrick are here. So glad to have you. And I'll let you take it away with your presentation.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, Council, and Administration. It's a pleasure to be here and to see everyone's faces. So we're here this evening to talk about the wastewater dechlorination project in Hornpain. We want to give a little sort of state of the industry and what's going on in the north with the various projects and go through the status of your project and then give you some options that we can discuss and or you can take back with you and discuss amongst yourselves. There's some options for consideration. Oh, it's so I can share it. Okay. Sorry. Can everybody see the presentation?
Yes.
Awesome.
Looks good.
Great. Okay, so just to start things off, I'll do a bit of a recap around the regulation that sort of prompted this project. The federal government put in place a new wastewater regulation. It's called the Wastewater Systems Effluent Regulation. And it's specifically tied to what's being discharged back into the rivers and streams and the source water. And the regulation regulates chlorine. So when chlorine is used in the wastewater treatment process to kill bugs and whatnot, it has to be dechlorinated down to a level of 0. Well, the objective is 0, but the regulation is at 0.02. So we undertook in partnership with the Township of Hornpain a feasibility study to look at your current wastewater treatment plant and your process, because there is chlorination used. And that feasibility study provided recommendations on the upgrades required in Hornpain to meet the new regulatory requirements. The new regulation came into force January 1st. We are currently in the middle of the project. So Pat and the OCWA team locally put in place a temporary system so that you're meeting the regulatory requirement and it can get you through the construction season for the project. So OCWA put together a proposal on how we would, project manage the project from beginning to end. And we're, supporting you with tendering it out, soliciting bids, reviewing those design that comes back from engineers to see, what is it going to work, and sort of putting the operation spin on what an engineer would design for you. We're currently at about 85% completed and slated for full completion by April 2021, and that's the design phase. The second phase is actually tendering out the construction portion of the project, and this is scheduled to begin shortly after we receive the design. All of the documents and communication back and forth with the engineers, we meet and discuss with administration and public works to get, the township's input on how the project is going and where it's at from a financial perspective, as well as anything that the engineers may have made changes to or recommendations to. And I'm going to pass it over to Pat in a few minutes to kind of give you some visual of what your current temporary system looks like, because we know pictures that I can speak about it, but if you haven't seen it, it's hard to kind of visualize what that looks like. But I will hand it over to Pat to maybe talk about the regional overview. So what are other communities doing in the north for dechlorination?
Thanks, Johanna. So basically just a little bit of a regional overview, and we didn't pick out every single facility that's out there in the region, but we do have a couple on here just to give you a couple of options, just to have a look and see what others are doing. So the municipality of Sioux Lookout, they upgraded to a full UV system for their wastewater treatment in August of 2020 to be able to meet the regulation. So basically the same project that Hornpain is involved in right now. The Township of Red Rock, they're doing a new wastewater treatment plant slated for commissioning in May, June of 2021. They're going to be utilizing UV for disinfection as well, to stay away from the chemicals. The Township of Air Falls, so there's a picture here of what the Township of Air Falls has elected to go with. And this was one that we wanted to share with everyone this evening as well, because this was a temporary solution that we actually trialed in Hornpain to kind of get us through the construction phase of the UV project. So basically what it is they've got cylinders that are filled with dechlorination pucks, and they're doing their dechlor that way. The water is just passing through the pucks and it's dechlorinating the water. So they did get an amendment approved for their ECA to be able to go ahead with this from the MECP. So Johanna, if you want to switch the slides, please. So this is what,
Was I on the right one?
Yeah, no, we're good right now. Perfect. Okay. So this is what the system that we have currently in Hornpain for temporary. Now, because Hornpain's a little bit different than the Air Falls plant, in Air Falls, they have sort of baffling where the flow gets restricted, so that when the pucks are sitting in the flow, when they're sitting just in the water and the flow is restricted, they're not utilizing the pucks because of the high flow. Hornpain, the way it's set up is there's not much of a baffling system where it restricts flow. It kind of just comes out and then goes right out to an outfall. So utilizing the dechlor pucks in that situation, we found we were going through probably about 50, 60 pucks within 7-8 hours. Now the cost of the pucks is about $300 per pail, which gives you about 145 pucks. So you can imagine the cost kind of going up and up and up, especially if the puck is being used up more because of the flow and not because of the dosing of the chemical. So we elected to, and we trialed this system, which is, and I think some of you may be a little bit familiar with this system. This was the same system that we used to chlorinate the wastewater when, I believe it was in 2018. I wasn't managing at the time, but there was some issues with the plant where we had to do a bypass and chlorinate. So it's basically the same system, a metering pump with the chemical that's dosing the effluent. So the chemical that we're utilizing right now is the same chemical that you would typically utilize if you had an engineered dechlor system. We're utilizing calcium thiosulfate, which is found to have no effect on the dissolved oxygen or the pH of the effluent going into the environment. So it's a fairly safe chemical for the environment. Excuse me. Now with this, just another thing real quick on that system. Another thing with the calcium sulfate and a metering pump, we're able to better dose the required amount of chemical to reach our desired residual going out, because we can ramp the pump up, slow the pump down. We can dose at 2%, 10%, 50%, 15%, which is much better controlled, especially for the chemical cost compared to what we trialed with the pucks because of the system. You can switch it, Joe.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
no problem. You might be wondering why we're talking about what's going on with other communities and showing you the temporary system. And the reason for that is we're at a critical point or a pivotal point within the whole project where we have time to take a bit of a pause. Design is almost completed on a structured system. And when we use the terms interim system and structured system, there are many benefits to having a full structured permanent system in place, specifically UV. And we'll go through those right at the end when we make our recommendation and talk about why we recommended the structured system versus, you know, the interim system that you just saw pictures of. Air Falls is planning on just doing the interim system, the picture that we showed earlier, and I can just switch back to it. They're not planning on doing a full UV system. There is an expense attached to it. They did get the provincial approval on the ECA. However, this is a federal regulation, so the province didn't necessarily approve that it meets the federal requirements. When they approved the ECA, they're saying that it meets the provincial requirements for wastewater. So we as partners in water and wastewater, it's our responsibility, and we take great pride in making the best recommendations that we know of to you as a council and administration to make decisions for your community. So we really just wanted to make sure that we gave you all of the information that's out there so that you can make really good evidence-based decisions. We also don't want to be the ones saying, yes, you know, spend all this money and do this big project if for 50 years, a neighboring community can get away with a smaller system that doesn't cost a lot of money, and they're fine, and the federal government leaves them alone. We wouldn't want you as a council sitting back thinking, well, maybe we didn't have to make that big of an investment. It is still our recommendation to do the project, and we'll talk about why. But the other thing we didn't want to do is, you know, if you did want to take a bit of a pause, we don't want to be asking you to spend money. There currently is no funding program that you've been successful with for applying for that. But that's not to say funding's not going to come out later on. Funding is continuously announced. There may be other projects besides the wastewater dechlorination project that you want to utilize that funding for within your vision and your plan really for your community. So we just wanted to have a general conversation about that. The options for your consideration are to complete the design phase of the UV system and tender out the construction to finish the project as per the original scope and proposal that we presented. The second option you have is to complete the design phase of the UV system and pause the tendering of construction. Utilize the temporary system, and then we can apply for an approval with an amendment to the ECA for the temporary system. Or you can abandon the UV project and utilize the temporary system permanently. And again, apply for an approval with an amendment to the ECA.
Just to add to that, Joe,
Sure.
if you do elect to, let's say, you know, you decide we'd like to try to go with this temporary system moving forward, and I do recommend, because, well, especially because you're at 85% completion of the design portion, I would recommend probably going through with that. And then if there's ever going to be opportunity for funding again for this particular project, having that design and the projects scheduled and ready to go would give an advantage in being approved for that funding. Because if typically when a project is not ready to go and the funding comes out, that kind of goes to the bottom of the list because there's others that are ready to go. So I would definitely recommend that.
Yeah, essentially you're shovel ready with the design.
Yeah.
The other benefit to it is if the federal government does come and inspect or provide additional guidance on their regulation, and they say, no, does not meet, this isn't what we had in mind, or any other kind of regulation comes out about chemicals or process, then UV essentially removes all chemicals. And Pat will kind of get into that a bit when we talk about why we recommend the UV system. You just don't know. We're really at the mercy of the federal government. So you're already, halfway there. If you've got the design portion completed, it's not a long period to go and tender out construction and sort of complete the project in its entirety should anything come up.
So for us this evening, we are still recommending that the township continues on with the project as planned. And that's a recommendation from OCWA, but also an engineered recommendation as well from the feasibility study. Options were given by an engineer, and UV was the recommendation. And there was nowhere in the feasibility study where they've recommended temporary solutions or dechlor pucks or things of that nature. So for us, we recommend, and the reason why, I think the main reason, maybe it's just me, but the main reason for me is the chemicals are completely gone. Health and safety is no longer an issue when it comes to chemicals for not only operators, but also the residents, since the wastewater facility is basically surrounded by residential homes. The other reason is there's the federal government, we don't know what's going to happen. One day they may turn around and they say, okay, well, chlorine is no longer allowed to be used to disinfect, to where the township will be forced to go to UV. If that were to happen, the cost of the construction, design, labor, materials for this UV project, could be up to 2 million by that time, depending on how long we're talking. We can't foresee what the federal government's going to do, but continuing on with the project will ensure that the federal government coming in is not going to have an effect on the Township of Hornepayne when it comes to chemicals going into the waterways. So for us, that's the recommendation. But again, we're happy to proceed any way the township would like to proceed, and definitely will be there to support you in your decisions. The other thing is the cost of chemical as well. we're not just, we're also saving on the cost of chlorine that we're utilizing right now with this UV. And I know a lot of people will say, oh, the energy, they're not energy efficient and things like that. In speaking with the engineers, they are much, much more efficient when it comes to energy compared to what they used to be when they first came out. So I don't think there's a big, huge difference there.
No, and UV disinfection is the preferred method throughout everywhere for disinfecting wastewater because of all the reasons that Pat listed. So lots of information. I know it might take a little bit for everyone to kind of digest it, but are there any questions or discussion points?
So Johanna, you're done your full presentation right now. We can open up to floor to council.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, great. I think there's questions out there from council. And if I could get you to take your screen down, I'll be able to see people better. Everyone's just tiny little.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for that. And thank you for your presentation and working on behalf of our community. We appreciate it. And I think I see John's mic off. Councillor Paroff, go ahead while Johanna takes her screen down.
Thank you, Mayor. I did have a quick question. It's a good presentation, and I want to thank you for bringing that to us. The design phase, you said, is 85% done, completed. Now, there's an option that we could pause. Is there kind of a time limit where we could pause and just review it again and see if it fits our budget and stuff? Or does it only go for a couple of months or something? Can you?
So if you were to decide to take that pause, there wouldn't be an allocated amount of time or anything like that. You could pause, whether it would be to review the project again, whether it would be to wait for funding to come out, or any kind of reason like that. The only issue would be is if we are to complete the complete project in 2021, you kind of need to move on with the project kind of as we're going. We're kind of slated to be on schedule right now with losing a couple of weeks here in preparing to make sure that we can get you the proper information. But the ECA documents have to be submitted to the MECP. That could take months before it gets approved. And then construction phase would begin in probably June of 2021, if we were to continue on. If Township elects to take a pause for a period of time, maybe a couple of months, we may end up being into construction season in 2022 to complete the project, if the township decides to go that route.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Paroff?
Yes, it does. Thank you for that.
Any follow-up?
I was just wondering if phase 2 is in our budget already. Was it accounted for, or do we know that?
We'll take that to Melissa.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
We currently have 989,000 budgeted for financing for this year.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have other, thank you for that, Councillor Paroff. Other questions from council? Drago, Councillor Stefanik, go ahead. You're on mute still. There you go.
It's my new computer, I apologize. It's supposed to work.
No, that's all right.
Thank you both for your presentation. My take on this is we should complete the project and proceed. The UV systems have been in use in Europe over 70 years. The forerunner in that was Germany. When I studied this in 1978 to 80 in college, they were forerunners in UV system disinfection. It was most efficient system at that time and was not costly, but efficient as far as getting rid of all the effluents and everything else. And I think if the budget allows, from where I stand, we should proceed with this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stefanik. Peter or Belinda, do you have any comments or questions at this time? Not Belinda, okay. Councillor Kistemaker, Peter, go ahead.
Yes, the budget allows it. I don't think we have much of a choice. It seems like it's the only logical solution. As expensive as it is, we're up against the wall. We have to do something.
Yeah, there's definitely needs to be a decision for sure and how we're going to move forward. Any further comments, Peter? Okay. I do have a couple of questions, Pat and Johanna. With the UV system, if we were to decide I think councils all voice they're definitely going to finish the engineering portion of that for sure. If we were to decide to not maybe take a pause, but actually plan to have it completed in 2023 or 2022, would we be able to still apply for funding if it came open because we hadn't spent any money or done any work on the project? Like if we allowed, like instead of going at it full steam this year, looking at getting it contracted and prepared for next year, would it allow us to jump on any funding if it was to come open?
We believe so because there would be two separate projects. So we can't know what eligibility the funders will put in place, but typically what we've seen is the project can't have been started. So because it's just the design, there would be no construction started. We believe that that wouldn't make you ineligible for it.
Okay, so would we still be able to secure the people though that would do the project so that if funding didn't open up, we would have that secured and it would go forward next year?
I think we could planned out that way, but I do think that the cost will have to be adjusted if we wait a year. It may not. It may be very minimal. I don't know. This was pricing that was brought forward to us when we tendered it out, and it being, kind of over a year later, there may be some additional costs just due to annual increases in material and labor and things like that.
Yes.
It's a good question, but I don't believe we wouldn't be able to award the construction because the project can't have started. So that may make you ineligible for funding if it did come out. And I don't know if that may be the only way to secure pricing with a contractor is if it's actually awarded.
Okay, good. With our current system, if we were to put a second clarifier in, would this UV system handle that into the future?
I believe so, because currently the Township of Hornpain is not operating at 100% capacity on the one clarifier. If a second clarifier were to be put in, and it would be a great idea, but definitely a huge cost. The benefits to that would be more towards proper maintenance of our clarifier, to be able to take one down and have one as a standby to be able to. So if operated that way, the UV should have no issues taking the flow, because the flows are not going to increase too much. Now I can go and discuss with the engineer to see how much more percentage of flow can the UV system take, so that we have an accurate number and we can accurately say that yes, you don't have to make any additions to the UV system if you go ahead with the new clarifier.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. My thought process on that, I'll come right to you, Melissa. My thought process on that is that council has set out in their strategic plan to do a full water plan. And that was where, and I know this is regulated from the federal government, so we have to take action. But I was just trying to ensure before that plan's completely done that all the pieces are fitting together, and then also that we're not borrowing, and then we tie ourselves down to how much we can borrow into the future. So those were where my thoughts were coming, to try and do a systematic, strategic kind of spend, not and how we could do that. Like, I'm fully aware we need it. So Melissa, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask Pat or Johanna, and maybe you don't know the answer to the question, but you mentioned that we're saving money on chemicals right now. Do you know what the added cost is right now or if there's any added cost from the temporary system that's going in place, or we're just saving money at this point?
There's going to be some added cost. We haven't really been online long enough to really project what those costs are going to be, because the flows have been very, very low throughout the winter months while we've been operating the temporary system. Now that we're getting closer to spring, the flows are going to increase, so the dosage will have to increase, and we're not 100% sure how much the dosage is going to have to increase to reach our target. And then we'll be able to have a better idea of what the overall cost will be for the temporary system, or even what the cost would be if you wanted to continue on with that system. We could possibly do best guesses from previous years, maybe an average of the past 5 years, and calculate some pricing that way to give you a better idea. But to be able to say, you know what, it's going to be this, we just haven't been doing it long enough and seen enough of the different flows throughout the different seasons of the year.
Okay, so would you, Pat, on that then, would you take the flows that we've seen, like average them out for say summer or spring over the last 3 years, and then add the amount of chemicals you would need to process that? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, but we have to go through the spring, the high flow spring, to see what we're actually dosing to be able to get that average. Because we haven't dosed or used the chemical at that specific flow yet, we're not sure as to what the dosage is going to be. So once we get through the spring and we figured out what our dosing is going to be to reach our target at our high flows, at our peak flows, then we can then take those numbers and average them out in the last 3 to 5 years to give us an idea of what that would be, especially with the fall, because the fall is still high flows, but not quite as high as spring. So we would be able to gauge what the fall is going to give us. And we always do want to take an average, because some years are a little lower, some years a little higher, depending on the melt, depending on infiltration and other different factors.
Council, with that discussion that was had, is there any further questions from council or any further comments? I'm wondering for the UV project, because it's 85% complete on, so we don't really know exactly how much it's going to cost us until the whole engineering project's complete. And I'm talking both structurally and the operation of it.
So the engineering, once the engineering aspect of it is completed, they will then, if council chooses to continue, they'll tender out the construction portion of it, along with getting the ECA amended and all that. So we've yet to see the price come back from that. So it could be a little less, a little more, depending on what the tender brings about for the construction portion of it.
One thing I just wanted to add to that I thought about when you're talking about borrowing, if that is something that you're considering for this project, one thing to keep in mind is the borrowing rates are at historic lows right now. We don't know where those are going, and Melissa can probably add more context if you do have questions to that. But I do know that right now they're very low through Infrastructure Ontario or other sources, depending on where you're looking. Just wanted to.
Thank you for that, Johanna. Yeah.
No problem. So lots to consider. You know, I will say too, if you do have other questions or you think of anything else and you want to submit them through Gail and Dwayne to Pat and I, we're happy to come back to council. We're happy to, you know, respond and give you answers to those if you need them sooner than we can come to a council meeting.
I'm wondering, once the whole project is completed, the whole engineering part, at that point we would have more concrete numbers, and would it slow down the project, the tendering process, because we are going to have to pass a resolution to carry on with the project? Gail, am I correct, at an upcoming meeting?
Actually, that's already been done.
Okay.
That's already been done, but this new information has come to light, so that's why they're coming back to provide options to see if you want to pause now, because the study that was done provided estimates of what the project would cost, which is the 989,000 plus 169. Melissa, that would be our portion.
Sorry, it's actually 939,593, which would be the financing, and our portion is 165,271. So the total project is 1.1 million.
Okay. And we still had to fit the payments into our budget as well, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. However, if we went with Infrastructure Ontario, they do 2 payments a year. So the first one is in February and the second one is in August. So there would be only 1 payment for 2021.
1 payment for 2021, okay. And then would those payments be higher into next year then, because we only had 1 payment this year? Is that how that works? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'm concerned that we don't know exactly what the price is going to be. So I'm wondering, and I don't want to hinder the project, that all of council has given voice that we need to do this. So what would be your recommendation, Gail, that you've seen all of council speak to this?
Well, purely based on the way we've been moving forward in the last couple of years, I would personally like to see us move forward with it, as long as maybe in the design part we could have a look and make sure that the system could handle if there were increased flows, because we are planning to grow hopefully a little bit, and have the long-term solution in place, and rather than what could be a band-aid. We don't know that for sure, but and if it does turn out to be a band-aid, then we're kind of in the same situation that we found ourselves in the last 3-4 years, and we're trying to head away from that. So that would be my recommendation. I mean, it is expensive, but I think for the long term, we're trying to look at the long term, and to me, that's the best way to go.
Thank you, Gail. Is it realistic to think we are going to get a contractor to bid on this year and get it done this year? Patrick or Johanna?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yep. And the quicker we get the tendering out, the better, because, and this is just, from the engineers, the contractors are lining up their season at this time, right? So the quicker we get that tender out, the quicker we have chances of multiple bidders.
Okay. Any further comment from council? So we're not changing our mind on going forward with the project, and we're going to keep the resolution as standing? Okay. Okay, well, I thank you both for coming, and we'll leave that with Gail to continue on and carry on with the project. And I'm not sure you're welcome to come back when it's completely engineered. You are welcome to do that, or send the documents through Gail, whatever's easier. That's up to yourselves and Gail, okay? And unless does council want to see the final project papers at council table? Councillor Stefanik, go ahead. Oh, you're on mute again. There you go. Oh.
Sorry, I think thank you. I apologize for again. I think that's an administration role, Madam Mayor, that they could do document as any other major project. And if they have any concerns, I think they could bring back to council. I think that's the way we should be moving forward. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Councillor Paroff?
Yeah, I would think so. If it's it's way out of the box, and bring it to us. But if it's in the scope of what our budget is, it's a go ahead for me.
Okay. There, well, thank you so much for being at our council meeting tonight, Johanna and Pat, and nice seeing you. And hopefully when we see you again, we're in person and not on virtual here in Horn-Payne.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for the time.
Thanks for coming.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Good night.
Take care.
Okay, so we're moving on with our agenda to item 6, which is open discussion for public discussion and council deliberations on the 2021 municipal budget and the 2021 water and sewer rates. And Melissa, do you want to speak to this first?
Actually, I'll just go over a couple of changes that I made from the first draft to the second draft. There isn't very many, so it should be quick. So the second draft consists of a proposed 1.5% tax increase, as the first draft did. So further council discussion will be required. So if you want to go to page 3 of the detailed document, on land sales in the revenue for administration, land sales was increased 550,000, sorry, and that's due to increased inquiries and potential sales. Excuse me. The next change is on page 6, which is the fire department revenue. So $4,800 was put into the fire department, and that's due to the fire department's allocation of the Ontario Fire Safety's grant for fire training and inspection program. And the last change in revenue is on page 23. Their increase from deferred revenue in the economic development department, there was an increase of $9,000 from the NWMO economic development deferred revenue from 2020. So those are the only changes that I've made to the revenue. So on the expense side, on page 35, which is the fire department budget, there was $4,800 added to the travel and training as a result of the grant from the Ontario government. The next change is on page 53, and this is expenses for the landfill compactor. I added $30,000 in there as we're currently having problems with the compactor machine, and maybe Dwayne could speak to that a little bit more.
Which page are we on? I missed the page.
53.
53. Dwayne, are you going to speak to that? Go ahead.
Sure, yeah, we're having trouble with the transmission on the compactor. We're having trouble finding parts for it. It's actually the torque converter is gone. I have people looking right now trying to find me a rebuilt torque converter. I don't know the exact cost, but I'm expecting 20,000 plus to repair it. And to replace that machine with new is like $750,000. So we're looking right now.
Okay.
Okay, so on the next change. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead, Melissa.
So the next change is on page 58. There is $20,000 added in for in the Parks Department, and that's for the relocation of the ball field. On page 63, the $20,000 was left in the budget for fitness equipment and refurbishment. So council discussion is required for that. On the next page, page 64, all of the salary and wages and benefits for the library have all been increased. That's as a result of their QP negotiations and 2020 retroactive pay that it's going to have to be paid out in 2021. And just a note on that, I removed one of the WSIB. WSIB was in there twice, so I removed one of those. The next change is on page 65. $9,000 was added in for the office rental for Economic Development Department, and further discussion from council is required on that. And the last change is on page 73, and that's the service delivery review implementation for the Municipal Modernization Fund. So the total project was slightly less than we anticipated, and that that grant application has gone in. For the total project's $162,035, and we applied for electronic records management, website redesign and accessibility for our website, online business and available properties registry, IT support, employee training, and IT disaster recovery plan. And those are the only changes that were made, and there was no changes made to the water and sewer. But I just wanted to say something about the Dechlorination project. So we have $939,593, which I stated budgeted for financing. And then we have our portion of $165,271 to come out of our OCF federal or formula component. However, if council decides that they want to do the pause, or I'm not sure the way council wants to go, we do have additional funding available in our OCF formula component. So when we take out our portion for 2021, there's still $240,000 left in the OCF formula component that could be used towards that project.
Okay, so you're saying we could actually borrow less?
Yes.
Okay, does that put us in a good spot though? Because sometimes it's better to have cash on hand and then you borrow. And are we hitting our rate of how much our payments are?
Well, this one, the OCF formula component, we didn't spend any money of it in 2019 and none in 2020, and we have to spend those funds within 5 years. So we can't save it for too long.
Okay. Go ahead, Gail.
So what funds are we using again for the airport? Melissa, I know that's only a a smaller portion this year, but
It's
that's
federal gas.
including,
That's federal
taking that
gas
into
tax.
consideration. Okay.
Okay, so that's federal gas tax for the
Yeah.
airport, and we're covering that all with federal gas tax.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we talk about the money in OCIF, that's not part of our reserves, our water reserves either then, right? That's
No.
a separate fund that we have sitting there
Yeah,
that
and
we
it
have
can,
to use?
and it can only be used for water, wastewater, and roads.
Okay, okay. I'll open up the floor for discussion to council. Or Melissa, you're finished with the changes?
Yeah,
okay.
I'm finished. If you wanted to go through the comments, that's entirely up to you.
Okay. Gail, go ahead.
Just one other comment about the OCIF funds and talking about having some cash on hand. Just to keep in mind, if we apply for something else, we will need a portion available for that as well. So if it was for water, wastewater, or roads, we could draw from that 240 as well.
Go ahead, Councillor Paroff.
Yes, I just wanted to ask a question. A moment there you said OCF funding is for water, wastewater, and roads. I'm wondering, is there other funding opportunities for roads other than OCF?
We could also use our federal gas tax for roads, but we don't really know that until funding gets announced. The federal gas tax and the OCIF are, we get them consistently every year. Actually, I shouldn't say that because the OCIF component might almost got stopped this year, but then they decided last minute to keep it going.
Any further questions, John?
No, that's okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from council? So we did have a submission from Peter. Did I see your hand up? Sorry, I was looking down. No, okay. We did have a submission from a township residents, which I do appreciate. Thank you for putting your input into our budget. And I have to say that I was in agreement about at some point we are going to have to look at growing our public works. And thank you, Councillor Stefanik. Did you want to comment on any of your comments, Councillor?
Oh, it works. Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. As you could see, after I made those comments, they're not made lightly. That's after listening to a presentation by our fine treasurer. I reread analyzed the budget again. I agree fully with 1.5% increase for the municipality. And I'll give you some background. Going back in 1984, it appeared every time municipal council over the years had a 0% increase that particular year. Usually 2 or 3 years they have to catch up with 4%, 5.5%, 6.4%. So I think it's financially prudent. I've been a taxpayer of this community for 37 years, so I'm affected as well as anyone else. I think it's prudent at this time at 1.5. I also further believe what was recommended by the treasurer for water and sewer to take it from the reserves that she has recommended. Number 3, I do believe anytime you have equipment such as weight training equipment, and everybody knows this, we have to replace it at one time, repair it, or throw it, buy a new one. So I agree 100% with all the recommendations that were done at the last meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. When I submitted my comments, I am concerned about our tax rate. We have to, and you can read them in the comments. I'm not going to read verbatim what I wrote, but basically that we have to get on some sort of long-term planning where we are looking at our tax rate, looking at what needs to be added to our residential tax base and how that affects the income, the revenues that the municipality receives, so that we can start being competitive with other communities. And I don't know exactly what all the surrounding communities are at. I know in the past, Melissa, we did do some comparisons, I think three years ago or so. So, and we were higher than everyone at that time, I believe. Yes, Melissa? Sorry, that is a question. I'm sorry. I should form it in a question, right? So that's my train of thought on that. And it is going to have to take a risk. We are going to have to plan for that. I'm not necessarily saying that we need to plan for this year. We did struggle through COVID, and we are going to struggle for a few more months as the pandemic comes to an end, hopefully. But at some point, I think there needs to be a plan put in place where we make a firm decision to say, okay, we're gonna try and compete and attract people to our community, and we're gonna do it by our tax rate and whatever other, like once the water survey's done, maybe there's some other areas in there that we can make our water more competitive as well. I'm not sure. The one on the water rate increase, I had suggested that we do a 1.5% increase and split that cost. It's up around, I don't have the numbers in front of me, it's just over 30,000, I believe, Melissa, is the full deficit we're looking for. My thoughts on that is after the water survey comes back, I don't think it's going to come back and say, hey, we found you a bunch of money and you save all this money here. So, and I'm concerned about taking it out of our reserves, because how we're talking about improving infrastructure, we need some of those cash assets there. Although I didn't realize we had the OCF money. So that's another topic. So when I was going through, I was actually reversing the two. So, but with no, and I do agree with Councillor Stefanik completely. I totally agree with that. You can't just do 0% no tax increases. That I don't like just that on its own. What I'm saying is that we do a strategic plan where we get our tax rate to meet and we attract investment in. So we might not be ready for that this year, but I think that's where we're headed, and we need to get there. Because if we don't start attracting, and it's great, like we see new homes going up, we have new businesses coming to our community, so we're on the right track. But I think to even push that further, we have to put pen to paper and show that we're doing it. So if we don't start this year, then I would highly recommend that we start next year. And it will take a risk. It will be a risk. The only other comments, all the general comments, why I wanted to put them on paper was so that people can see and read where their mayor's thoughts are on the budget process and us moving forward, and how we can link all of the strategies we're doing forward and linking them to and they are, like Melissa commented back, they are linked, but I'm not sure. I leave that up to the senior management team on how we can further link those things together. So when we do a presentation to the community, we can say, look, this was exactly done this way because council said they wanted this, right? And we're always improving that process. So, and I don't know if there's any comments or questions from council on the submissions that I put in. I could take those if you want further clarification. Councillor Stefanik, go ahead.
Yeah, through Mayor, to you. Yeah, I agree with you. I think the long-term plan should be possibly put in action in this fall of this year, and as a council administration, we sit down and look at the plan of attack we're going to do as council. That I agree with, as you mentioned. For this year, my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kestmaker, Belinda?
I think at the moment, right now, we have our strategic plan that's in play. We have the service review that was done. You're doing the asset management plan, where the asset management plan is including our capital. We're looking at probably risk management. We're doing that. All those things are going to help make decisions to go forward. So to me, we're on the right track to make a long-term plan. And with these things all coming into play, those things are all supposed to help us. And even like reading the comments from Melissa on how she reacted to the comments that were put in, the questions that were asked, she was able to answer them. They were part of the strategic plan. She has accounted for that money. So all that, I think we're on the right track. I think we're getting somewhere in order to make that long-term plan.
Okay. So if council doesn't have any further comments, this is a public discussion and the public is able to speak. And I do see we have, I'm only seeing one name on the screen that's not staff. Is that correct? Yeah, okay.
That's correct, but the other two names are not here as staff. They're just here attending.
Okay. My apologies. There's no way to differentiate. So at this time, I will open it up for comments or discussions to people attending our council meeting on budget deliberations on either the budget or the water and sewer rates. And if you would like to speak, you can unmute your mic because that's the only way I'll be able to see that you would like to speak. Okay. Oh, go ahead, Bonnie.
I just want to say that I agree with Drago. If you don't increase the taxes and then have to put on a tax rate of like 4% to catch up or something like that, any business always increases a little bit every year to cover so that you don't have to put a big increase all at once. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you for that, Bonnie. And thank you for attending tonight too. Okay, I don't see any further comments from the public. I'm going to open it up and ask you, Melissa, what do you exactly need from council tonight then? Yeah, that's all right.
Sorry about that. So I need direction on the tax rate, what council comes consensus on the tax rate, the water and sewer increase. If council would, what their final decision is in regards to the 20,000 for the fitness equipment, and also if council agrees with the changes that I made, in particular the economic development office rental, if council would like to provide us direction to seek other spaces, or if we're gonna keep 18,000 in there for the full year, or if we're gonna seek options to share space with the MSC and the Economic Development Department.
I think on the office space amount, we really have to wait till the MSC is up and running. But I did want to put that in my comments of the budget so that people know I'm going to be the new chair of the MSC, and that's a discussion that's going to be had, because that the Municipal Housing Corporation really needs to focus on housing and getting all of that off the ground. And in the interim, the Economic Department is working hand in hand with the new project manager, but at some point we're going to have to look at how those entities and how the Economic Development Office stands on its own. Councillor Stefanik?
Yeah, just a supplementary question through you, Mayor, to Melissa. When you say shared office, I'm assuming there'll be privacy for both entities in that office as opposed to have an open concept. There's obviously a lot of confidential stuff will be happening for both entities. So I'm hoping that there's a room, 2 individual rooms. Thank you.
I'm going to actually defer that to Gail because I came out of a discussion Gail and I had.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Gail.
As far as I know, and I'm sorry to ask Stacy now, but you're more familiar with the setup down there, but there are 2 offices in that apartment, correct?
Are you talking about my office or the HGDC office?
Yeah,
My
no,
office?
your office.
There's two rooms in that office, but I have an intern in one, my office in the other, and potentially have a summer student this summer.
Okay. And the HGDC office
Is one
itself, I'm sorry?
Is one room.
So you've got the apartment, the 2-room apartment like across the hall from there, plus the HGDC office at the moment? Well, you don't, but there are 2 spaces that may or may not be used. Okay. Yeah. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Okay, the rental, so the office is across from the current existing HEDC office and boardroom. That apartment directly out the hallway door is not rented yet. It's still being used as an office space?
No, so the HDC office is on the first floor. My office is on the other side of the building, close to the hotel. It's apartment 205. It's a 2-bedroom apartment.
Yeah, I know.
The apartment across from the HDC office has a tenant in it.
Okay, there's a tenant there now. Okay. Because at one time that was open offices that they would rent out and utilize. Okay. So are we okay to leave the amount as standing as Melissa's put it in the budget? Okay. The $20,000 for fitness. Any comments from council? Go ahead, Gail.
So we've started discussions back up again with Robin, who owns the gym in Marathon. And he has again reiterated his offer to seek out some used commercial equipment for us to replace some of our old equipment in the fitness facility. And I think it's a good opportunity to get some much better, much newer equipment for a half decent price. He goes to auction to get it for his own gym, and he would do the same for us. So I don't know. I know Dwayne was in conversation with him yesterday, and I don't know if you got that deep into conversation, Dwayne, if there's any updates that you have. But I would think that some budget in that area would be really helpful right at this time when we have this opportunity.
Dwayne, yes, go ahead.
We just started that conversation today. We didn't get very far though. I was at the arena most of the day. We're still in the middle of that conversation for equipment.
I guess my question would be is, do we feel that 20,000 would make a dent and in the equipment? Because I know at one time when we were speaking with Robin, it was significantly higher, but that might have been the replacement of all equipment.
I think for, even if we just did 3 or 4 pieces, a lot of our equipment is in really rough shape, and he doesn't think some of it is that safe. And I think that's a big liability for us. So I'd really like to take advantage of this while we can and just do what we can with what we have. Okay. We're still going to get more than what we would if we bought new. And if he's putting it in his own gym and he's very safety conscious, it's going to be good quality stuff.
Okay. So council's in agreement to leave the 20,000 as is. Okay. And council's in agreement with a 1.5% tax increase to the municipal levy? Or tax rate, I should say. Yeah, I'm seeing okay. Was that everything you needed for the budget, Melissa?
Water and sewer rates as well.
Yeah, I'm just going to move to that one now. Okay. Okay, so water and sewer rates. The treasurer had suggested a 0 increase to water and sewer and taking the shortfall out of our reserves. Drago's in agreement with that. Gail, did you want to speak? Sorry. No? Okay. Any other comments from council? Okay, I'm just going to make it known that I was in favor of splitting that shortfall so that we could save our reserves for further investment. But if council wants to go with the 0% and wait for the water study, I am good to give direction on that. Councillor Kistemaker, Belinda? You're good? Okay, we'll go with the recommendations from the treasurer. Okay, everyone's agreeing. And those resolutions and bylaws will come to our next meeting, correct, Melissa? And do you need any further direction? Is there anything we missed?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, now we're on to 7, discussion broadband CAO report. Gail, did you want to speak to your report before we open up the floor to discussion?
I don't think so. I think everything's pretty cut and dried in there. If you have any questions, I'll answer them.
Okay. So basically we're down to a decision point, as you can read in Gail's report, about either staying with the NSRBN or investigating other options. And I know from my standpoint, when we've done sitting at the table, I think we need to look at other options. I think there's a better solution out there for Hornpain. I am quite concerned about the 20-year commitment of $1.2 million. And yes. Councillor Paroff?
Yes, I agree with your recommendation. I think we should look a little further than the NSRBN.
The rest of council? Councillor Stefanik, go ahead.
As I said last meeting, I concur again with the recommendation to proceed the other avenues for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stefanik. Councillor Kistemaker, Belinda?
I go with the recommendation. I think there's a lot more homework to do.
Okay. And Councillor Kistemaker, Peter?
Agreed with everybody else.
Okay. So I have, Gail, I just have a question for you on logistics. For the council resolution that we deferred, do I put the same mover and seconder and reread that? Or is it a brand new resolution now?
It's a new one.
A new motion? Okay.
Yep.
So this is the motion that we deferred over 2 meetings. If I can get a mover and a seconder. Peter and John. Moved by Peter Kistemaker, second by John Paroff. Whereas the Township of Hornpain is a member of the Northeast Superior Regional Broadband Network, NSRBN, which was founded to facilitate the development, installation, and operation of a broadband network to promote economic growth, resiliency, and improve access to health and education services in each of its member communities, the project. And whereas the NSRBN members communities entered in a collaboration agreement setting out the internal structure, roles, and responsibilities of the NSRBN organization, and whereas the Corporation de Développement Économique et Communicateur de Duberville, on behalf of the NSRBN and Crown Capital Partners Incorporated Crown, entered into a memorandum of understanding dated February 11th, 2020, setting out the basis for cooperation between the NSRBN and Crown for the project. And whereas negotiations between NSRBN and Crown have progressed to the point where a non-binding term sheet set out the specifics of the proposed collaboration has been prepared, and whereas it is necessary to confirm the Township of Hornpain's commitment to the project in order to allow the project to proceed. Therefore, be it resolved that the Township of Hornpain is committed to proceeding as an equal partner in the project. 2, the Township of Hornpain approves the non-binding term sheet attached hereto as Schedule A, the term sheet, and authorizes the Mayor and CAO Clerk to enter into, execute, and deliver the term sheet on behalf of the Township of Hornpain. 3, the Township of Hornpain agrees in principle to provide an anchor commitment as generally set out in the term sheet, final approval of which shall be subject to review and approval of the terms and conditions of an anchor commitment legal agreement. 4, the Township of Hornpain acknowledges the deadline to finalize binding legal agreements is February 28th, 2021, and agrees to do all things necessary to meet this timeline. So, Council, I put the motion to a vote. Those in favor? Those against? And that is defeated. Gail, should I give some explanation on the second resolution?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so after the meetings and the discussion that we had, we thought it was imperative to have some sort of motion to show that we think the NSRBN project does have an underlying merit, that there's lots of work has been put into it, and to help the communities that are continuing on with the project to have encouragement and have support. And so the second motion that you see in your package, that's why that was created there, instead of us just sending a letter with a defeated motion of defeated resolution. And if I can get a mover, a seconder on that motion, and then we can have a discussion. Drago and Peter. Moved by Drago Stefanik, second by Peter Kistemaker. Whereas the Northeast Superior Regional Broadband Network, NSRBN, was founded to facilitate the development, installation, and operation of the broadband network to promote economic growth, resiliency, and improve access to health and education services, the project in each of its member communities, and whereas it is imperative that these goals be attained for the future success of all communities in the region and the Township of Hornpain, along with several other municipalities and the First Nation communities, has been an active member of the NSRBN, seeing great merit in the project goals of bringing fiber to the home, FTTH, and whereas the negotiations of the project have reached a point when member communities must choose to commit fully to the project or remove themselves from the process, and whereas Council, despite attending meetings and seeking information, is not prepared to make a firm commitment to continue with the project at the current time, and in order to ensure the best solution for our community, wishes to research and evaluate alternative options for broadband solutions for Hornpain. Therefore, be it resolved that due to the long-term financial commitment required to continue as a member of the NSRBN, the uncertainty of how future technological developments will impact operations, as well as the uncertain return on investment, after much deliberation, the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hornpain hereby withdraws from the North Superior Regional Broadband Network. Be it further resolved that a letter will be forwarded to the NSRBN advising of Council's decision and wishing the network much success as they move forward with the project. Any further discussion on the motion? None? Okay. There being none, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, so moving on in our package, we're on item number 8, and it's a resolution to amend a special meeting. If I can get a mover and a seconder, please. Peter and John. Moved by Peter Kistemaker, second by John Paroff. Be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hornpain does amend resolution number 2021-77 to reflect changes to the topics of discussion for the special meetings scheduled for March as follows. Wednesday, March 24th, 2021 at 6 p.m. presentation, Ontario Clean Water Agency Dechlorination Project and general update. Council deliberations and open public discussion on 2021 municipal budget and 2021 water and sewer rates. Broadband, amend special meeting March 31st, 2021. Date, Wednesday, March 31st, 2021. Time, 6 p.m. Intent to adopt the 2021 municipal budget and the 2021 water and sewer rates. Annual developmental work plans, broadband, acquisition or disposition of land, and a closed session personal matters S239 2B of the Municipal Act 2021. Any further discussion or questions on the motion? Those in favor, Council? And that is carried. Okay, moving on, we go to our closed session. If I can get a mover and a seconder, please. Drago and John. And just before I read the motion, the same as in the past, Gail, with just hit the link. If you get bumped off, go back into the link. We're still having issues with that. So moved by Drago Stefanik, second by John Paroff. Be it resolved that the next portion of the meeting at 7:22 p.m. be closed to the public in order to discuss a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, pursuant of Section 239 2K of the Municipal Act 2001. Those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, we'll meet you in the closed session link.
Madam Mayor, just a comment,
Yes.
please.
Yes.
Being the new computer, I have no idea how I'm going to navigate there. So if I'm not there on time, please start. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'll try to follow my, because I say I have no idea what the new one. So, but I'll try to be there. So as long as you know that, thank you.
Yep. Okay. We're all having technical difficulties. So yes. Okay.